On October 22nd, 1952, Eugene entered the U.S. Air Force as a second lieutenant and was assigned to Radar Control School at Tyndall Air Force Base, followed by Radar Control, where he was an officer at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. As a boy, Eugene dreamed of piloting planes. He began spending time at the airport with the goal of convincing airport officials to let him work there to pay for flying lessons. With newfound inspiration, he dreamed his way to a persistent, tactful, skilled, and steady combat leader. Flying over 5,000 hours as pilot in command and a respected veteran of the Vietnam War, his grit and determination has impacted so many.
I don't even think you could put it, put your finger on it, because there's this whole career of when, African Americans weren't even recognized in the military, much less being a pilot. That takes us to a whole nother level, and then the exposure that he received in whatever his missions were, going behind the Iron Curtain. And there was a few other times that he told me that because of his race, he couldn't leave the plane. Like, you have to stay here while everybody else goes in. I'm just like, oh my gosh. So again, the generations behind him had no clue. It's almost like me growing up. I had no clue as to how much wealth of, experience and background that I had, because of him. And I'm thinking that's the same thing with his legacy. It's like you can't even put your finger on any particular thing, because he went during a time when African Americans weren't even acknowledged, and here he's doing what most would dream of, like just fly a plane, much less doing missions and taking, he's in the C-130 taking tanks, he's not just taking passengers, he's got tanks and equipment and supplies, he's refueling other planes in the air. These are things you just don't hear about, and he did it.
To me, he was just Uncle Gene. He's just Uncle Gene, very understated, believed in manly deeds and scholarship and love for all mankind, and that was a part of who he was for over 73 years. Uncle Gene often spoke in the space of honoring your commitment and knowing that he was married to my Aunt Berlina before she transitioned for over 55 years. Like, how do you do that? How do you continue to grow without growing apart? How do you continue to live and experience so much of life in the way the world changes? To be in the space of Tuskegee, the Tuskegee Institute, and to fly with Tuskegee Airmen during that civil space in history, in that fight for rights and equality. How do you continue to stand when so much against you feels like it's weighing you down? And those are some of the questions that I wish I could answer.
Eugene was well-rounded. He loved the Lord and his family. He enjoyed fishing, bowling, music, singing, and of course, dancing.
But we loved him. My best memory of him is he liked to dance and I liked to dance. He don't like to dance. But Gene and I get to cut up a lot when the bowling alley they play during practice. They play some really upbeat music, and we like that.
There was no average day. I mean, he had a schedule, especially once he retired. I was an adult. I had to keep a calendar for him between all of his activities, between bowling league, church, whether it was the choir, So of course you got rehearsals, you got your bowling league whenever they played. Then he had practice for the bowling league. So that's a different day. So he had something going on. And then we're not even going to talk about the invites he'd received, you know, with the fraternity, if they had something, he was there.
Yeah, at the General Convention, Brother Henry was recognized as the oldest registered brother at the convention, and along with receiving another Spirit Award. And it's just like when I mentioned that energy that just you gravitate to. Everyone, we're talking a General Convention. We hadn't had one since COVID, so just imagine that energy in that room, again, being recognized, and just the humility that Brother Henry presented. It's something that I've always gravitated to, and something that I found very admirable about him.
He's a family man. What I remember most about him is being committed to love, committed to relationships, committed to family, and just how much he loved Mom Berlina and Cheryl. I mean, when they are happy, his world is lit up. And it was just a joy to be able to see that.
When I first met him, I mean, he was one of the humblest, sweetest person I ever want to meet in my life. And I want to thank you all for letting him come into my life for the 2.5, 3 years that we were together. But
well, some of my fondest memories is to be able to be there with them in the home and watch Mom Berlina prepare meals and help her out with the meals. And I've sat at a table to fellowship, and more so than anything, one of the major cornerstones that I believe has kept them together as a family is their faith in God. They put God first in whatever they do. We're not saying that we as individuals are perfect, but what it does is allow you to have that personal relationship so that individuals will grow. So if you're gonna spend some time with them in their home, you're definitely gonna open up the Bible and spend some time, and you're gonna take some verses home with you that you can actually live by going forward. So that has been a beautiful relationship for me. And I'm just glad that I had an opportunity to spend that time, because, we meet people for a season. Sometimes we meet people for a lifetime.
To have someone in your life who's gone through or been through so much to help you to endure. That's my Uncle Gene.
I can always say that when I die and I get to heaven, I hope Gene will let me be on his team.
I had received an appointment from West Point to attend West Point. Everything was great. Everything was what I wanted, In October of that year, I had an accident. Had to retake my SAT score to get a higher score. Working that job, so I was tired the next morning, didn't want to drive. Asked my mom, can you drive? She said, no, boy, you driving. There was only 3 people in my family, my mom, my dad, and me. My father was killed. I think ethnically, we don't turn for help. We turn to each other. Uncle Gene always was there for me. He always talked to me, always encouraged me. Everybody in my family had, but me, had ideas on what I should do with my life. And Uncle Gene talked to me, and he asked me, he said, so you're just gonna go in the military? And I said, yeah. He said, you're not gonna go to college? I said, no, sir, not now, maybe later. He saluted me, he said, you know what? If that's what you do, I'm gonna hold you to it. I'm 60 years old right now. I'm a junior in college. He didn't get to see me graduate, but I held on to that. because it meant something.
I am Sharon Harrison right now, and I am his oldest daughter. We did not live together, but he was always in my life. I lived in Mississippi and he lived everywhere. So anyway, but we kept in contact with, I've never had an opportunity to say, I don't know where my dad is, I don't know, I haven't heard from him. He was always a constant in my life, and he has been my hero. I mean, from beginning. I mean, it was kind of strange, and most of the kids didn't believe me when I said, oh, my daddy flies a big airplane in grade school. And it was so far for them, they couldn't, oh yeah, you just making up something. But he was always my hero. And he was always there whenever I needed him. And as far as the legacy goes, that was the one thing that he always talked about. I have 3 children, a son and 2 daughters, and he got to know them very well. But their children, as lives got busy and things got to going, he didn't get a chance to see the great-grandsons as much as he thought he should have. So that was one of the things that he really wanted to do. And so we were able in the last 3 or 4 years of his life to get those great-grandsons with him. And we did a lot of things together. So they're still talking about it. They're still saying, I want to do what Papa did. I want to do what he did. And so he made a lasting impression on them.
He was so humble about his accomplishments. When I met him, I had no idea. I met him through Berlina. She was working on a project, and I was at a client site, and she happened to be there, and he was with her. And I told her I could help her, and we engaged in that. And then out of that work element came my relationship with him, because he would come with her everywhere. And we started talking, and then it was like, she was like, well, are you his, am I your client, or is he? I said, well, you're the client, he's the friend. He would cut the grass. We were at lunch one day, and it was about 1:30, and it's about 90 degrees. It's in the summer. And we're sitting there and about to finish up. And I said, so what are you gonna do this afternoon? He says, I'm gonna go home and cut the grass. I said, you're gonna go home and cut the grass when? He said, today. I said, you can't do that. He said, why? I said, it's 90 degrees out there. You'll bake. He says, I'll be all right. I said, Dad, please, don't go cut the grass until later, maybe this evening. So he says, oh, well, okay, I'll think about it, which means no. So I called him about 5:30, and I said, what are you doing? He said, I just finished cutting the grass. I said, how hot is it outside? He said, the temperature went down, it's 87. Okay, man does what he wants to do. He was 95, but it was more like he was 65. In everything he did, in his spirit, in the way he moved. And that's why it was kind of shocking. Maybe not unexpected, but shocking when his transitional time came.
You know, I can't think of, there was no magical words. There was no theory. But it was, what it was a life of example. You don't have to say anything to affect change. But what you do have to do is you have to be somebody. You have to be somebody that's committed, somebody that is fun, because life is not easy. no matter how much money you have, no matter how many accolades you have, it's not about nothing if you can't move forward. If you stay marching in the mud and you don't take a step forward, you'll do what? You'll be marching in the mud for the rest of your life. He was always, always committed. If he promised to do something, if he told me, I'll do this, he did it. You know, and like I said, I don't have a lot of money, but if I tell somebody I'm gonna do something, I'll go through hell and high water to do it. And he's one of the catalysts behind that.
To be 70 years old is an accomplishment, but then to be 70 years into any organization and still be active and be a part of it, I think that's what Alpha is, and that's what Alpha was meant to be. And you know, I have white colleagues that just don't understand, like, you still doing stuff with your friend? I'm like, yeah, our frat's not about partying, our frat's about community. It's about paving the way and making a way for those who come behind us. And to see him still doing that, I always will remember that and always will aspire to that.
I fell in love with him. Like, this is a good guy right here. I want to be, be like him. And then what took it to another level was I got a chance to fly with him. And that completely changed. I mean, I was just in awe of this man. Me being a pilot, him being a military pilot, I was just so in love with the way he flew that plane. I consider that to be a highlight of my life to fly with him. And it was just so beautiful the way he took control, it commanded that whole flight. I was like, wow.
He was really sound on being your integrity and obviously representing yourself, being authentic. I think he probably started that movement, being authentic, before it became hip.
November 25th, 2023, Lieutenant Colonel Eugene Henry Jr. filed his last flight plan when he departed his earthly life, leaving a legacy and impact to his country, his friends, and most of all, his family. Eugene, you're home.
If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or a song, if I can show